I'm really excited to have Nick with us today. He understands how sales teams operate and the tools and how to transform the way we approach prospecting and lead nurturing. Nick is a sales professor at HubSpot Academy, and he's dedicated himself to empowering sales teams with the knowledge and skills that they need to succeed. He'll be able to answer your questions, so make sure that you drop them in the chat. He has extensive experience with B2B and B2C sales, and he's a trusted authority in the HubSpot community. So today he's going to speak on how to sell smarter and uncover the insights and opportunities with HubSpot's prospecting tools. I'm not going to reveal all of the details. I'll let Nick give you all the insights you need today to help elevate the way your sales team operates. So I'm going to hand it over to Nick Decoulos from HubSpot Academy. Let's get going.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mary. What an introduction. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Decoulos. I am a sales professor, as Mary mentioned, with HubSpot. I've been with the HubSpot team for a little over a year now, but I've been familiar with HubSpot for a long time. And as Mary mentioned too, I have a long history of B2B and B2C sales, as well as a lot of sales training and enablement. So I'm excited to be here with you all. Thanks for being here, and find me on LinkedIn too. Happy to connect. All right. So today, just to kind of go over a quick agenda here, we'll get started by touching on some of the challenges that we've seen in sales over the last year. Then we'll jump right into two different key areas that Sales Hub focuses on. So first, lead and deal, lead management and qualification, and then deal management. So we'll go through how salespeople are qualifying and managing their leads and how they're closing deals and on reporting. We'll, of course, save some time for the Q&A at the end. I'll make sure you throw your questions in the Q&A in the Zoom here. And if we can answer them on the go, we'll do our best. But we'll save a lot of those kind of long, deeper dives for the Q&A. All right. Well, first, to get started, I'd love to just in the chat, why don't you kick things off? Just let me know from your own perspective. What are some of kind of the bigger challenges that you see salespeople facing this year? Ghosting. Customers ghosting, I suppose. Hopefully not sales reps ghosting customers, right? Mm-hmm. Longer sales processes, definitely, for sure. Lots and lots of those. Yeah, tough competition. More on ghosting. Hesitation. Oh, that's good. Greg, can you speak to the hesitation a little bit more too? Do you mind coming off mute and saying a little bit more about kind of what you mean by the hesitation? Do you mean hesitation on the prospector's side or on the sales rep side?
On the prospector side, that I think there's a lot of business people who are waiting to see what direction the economy goes, what direction elections go. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, too much territory to cover. Oh, yeah. All these are really great. I think, lots of consistency. A lot of what we're hearing is like, there's a lot of activities. There's like too much in process now. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to kind of centralize a lot of what we're trying to figure out. So let's talk about some of that. So our problem, right? We've seen typical solutions tossed around like, let's hire more reps. Let's beef up our tech stack. Let's have more calls, emails, more. But a lot of times that really hasn't been the way to solve what we're seeing now. It's a productivity problem that we're kind of running into, right? So here's kind of like our new way that we've been thinking about things. So the new way to kind of solve this in Sales Hub is quality over quantity. So enabling reps with right activities, not necessarily hiring more reps, and then finding a lot of the tools that we can use that are automated, use AI, and really help make our jobs a lot easier. Oop, going too fast. There we go. So let's just jump right in. We'll talk, like I said, about lead qualification first, the features that you need to help qualify these leads. Then we'll talk about managing those leads, an area that we've really doubled down in when it comes to Sales Hub. Then we'll go through the art of working those deals in Sales Hub, and then more importantly, closing them. And then finally, we'll wrap up discussing what every manager really cares about, and that's measuring the results and the impact, right? So, of course, we'll make sure to say AI more times in the latest tech keynote in each of these sections, just so you can see how HubSpot AI really makes sales reps' lives a little bit easier, too. I do know that Zoom did some kind of recent updates and things like that. I will be doing some live demos. So if you can't see my shared screen, make sure you're like clicking the tab and make sure you're looking at the shared screen view as well. All right, let's get started. So first, here's when it comes to kind of qualifying leads parts of things. So I added some kind of the challenges that we've been seeing, and some of you guys mentioned some of these here, like just breaking through that noise, getting through a lot of that hesitation, and connecting leads to the right people. So just some market research around this. We've seen almost 60% of sales professionals say that leads from marketing are higher quality, and that we have a lot of sales processes taking too long, and a lot of that becoming prospects, hesitation or just backing out of deals a lot of the time. So I'm going to show you 3 different tools to kind of combat this a little bit. So we're going to talk about lead form routings. That's an enterprise-specific tool. I just want to indicate that there. A lot of the tools that we'll be talking about today are kind of in that pro-specific space. Some will be enterprise-related. Lead form routings is one of them. We'll also talk about the scheduling meetings. That's pretty much all subscriptions there. There are some that are starter-specific and beyond. And then we'll talk about some sequences, too. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, make sure that everyone can see. Here's my context index page. I'm going to go over to marketing and to forms. I've set up something here for us to take a look at. So here's kind of the situation that I'd like to assume. Say we're coming back from a conference, and we've been told we have some like really great deal leads out of this conference, and we're sending out a form for them to complete to let us know kind of like what they're excited about and kind of get us on a scale. So I've created this kind of form here that's going to redirect to specific pages based on the response that happens in the form. So for example, I have, how awesome was your experience? And I have 3 different kind of grades here. I have an 8, a 7, and a 6, or, lower than a 6. So higher than an 8, lower than a 6, then a 7 in the middle. What it's doing here is it's routing them based on those scores. So if they complete the form and they have an 8 or higher, it's actually going to redirect to my colleague Alex's here scheduling page. So immediately we know that this is a really great lead. There's someone who's super excited and ready for us. Let's get them right away so that they can schedule some time with a rep. And then maybe this 7, we want to get them to a demo page, or maybe some content specifically. And then if they're lower than a 6, we want to get them to our events page. So you can kind of set these up as it makes sense for you in the business that can kind of qualify these leads for you in many different ways, which is kind of awesome. So let me now show you. I'm going to switch my portal here. We're going to talk about some scheduling. Oop, wrong portal. Excuse me. We are okay. All right, so scheduling meetings. Let's take a look at our meeting scheduler under library here. So first thing, the meetings tool can really drastically shorten your sales process. It's something that I think is an incredibly underrated tool within HubSpot. A lot of times, I don't think it gets as much attention that it deserves, because there are a few different types of meetings you can set up. So it's good to be aware of those kind of 3 different things you have. So one-to-one meetings, group meetings, and round-robin meetings. One-to-one meetings are for prospects looking to schedule time with just you or the user you're creating a scheduling page for. Group meetings are team scheduling pages that will display time slots when all selected team members are available to meet. So you want to use this to contact book meetings with like more than one member of your team. Maybe you have solution engineers involved in that conversation as well. Round robin allows contacts to book time with the first available salesperson instead of waiting for someone specifically. So if your sales process includes like a handoff to a BDR or a sales rep, using that is a really good tool. There's also a really cool way to kind of leverage this in the prospecting workspace, which I'll show you in just a moment, where you can book meetings on behalf of others so that it really eliminates that kind of back and forth that you have when it comes to qualifying the prospect. So let's take a look. So I'm going to go into the prospecting workspace here. That's under, again, workspaces, and then into prospecting. Here, this is a Pro Plus based tool. Here's my summary page of the prospecting workspace. So this came out last year at Inbound, September. And it's been really fun. I think like the entire concept around this was really to centralize a lot of the tools that sales reps are using on a regular basis. This is my demo portal, so you don't see a lot of activities happening here right now, right? What you would see, you have lots of tasks all set up for yourself for the day. You'd actually see 3 different categories here. You'll see start tasks for today, tasks that might have been done or tasks ready for tomorrow, and then any overdue tasks as well. Any sequences that people are enrolled in, you can have your calendar set up over here, and then any leads that have been assigned to you. And that's how you kind of get these over here. You click on your leads, and then these are all the leads that have been assigned to me. So here's kind of what I want to show you about when it comes to that scheduling portion. So if I click on a lead here, I get this split panel view. So I can kind of centralize again that everything I'm looking for, very similar to the records that you might see in your contacts index page, right? Here's all of my engagement tools. And if I click on the meetings one here, oh, come on. Do I really have the wrong one set up now? I think I do. That was very silly. Here, you know what? Let's try something. Give me one moment. I'd like you to be able to see that calendar, otherwise this doesn't work the same, right? Okay. Here we go. Okay, great. So here's where the option is I now can book for other people on behalf of them. So I can book on Alex's calendar, or I can use the meeting rotation, and maybe I have a rep rotation built in, and it's going to book who the next available person is. And I can see their whole calendar. So if I need to move this for whatever reason based on a better time, I can do that. So I can physically be on the call with the prospect as like a BDR, for example, and be setting up the next meeting right in the moment. I don't know about anybody else, sales managers in here, but my sales manager always taught me, like, book that next meeting, have next steps all the time. And this is a really convenient way to do that. All right, let's take a look at some sequences. So sequences are really, instead of needing kind of constant reminders to do manual task completion, you can send sequences and use them as a targeted series of timed emails and really allow yourself to nurture contacts and prospects over time. So you can use automatically create tasks within sequences to remind you to follow up with these contacts. But here's one to show you a really cool piece called A/B testing. So here's a test that I've created. And if you click here on these steps, I can see all of the emails and every step that's happening in this entire sequence. You notice here that there's a version A and a version B. So again, something relatively new over the last year that's come about is this ability to have these testing sequences. So I can choose different emails, and then I can actually identify which ones are working best. So you see that they actually have this score over here that tells me their open rate, their click rate, their reply rate, and their meeting rate. So how often am I capturing this information? It's a really cool way of just like letting these things kind of happen on their own and then being able to analyze those results and go, oh, well, we can optimize, like this email is clearly working a lot better at capturing our prospects than this other one is. So let's actually use this secondary one that we weren't considering initially. So really cool opportunities when it comes to sequencing now, just in terms of like optimizing what that outreach could really look like. All right, I'm going to go back now to my professional portal, and let's go back to let's talk about the next scenario here. Okay, so managing and working leads. We want to talk about here, there's a lot of challenges in terms of working across multiple tabs. We talked about how that prospecting workspace really centralizes a lot of those details and things for us. But we noticed that sales pros are spending, almost 2 hours a day just trying to sell. And a lot of that other stuff is like administrative stuff. So how do we really make sure that we're using our sellers as we can and making sure that they're selling as easily as they can and getting rid of a lot of those administrative tasks that we'll kind of run into a lot. So let's dive back into that prospecting workspace. I want to go through some more of those engagement tools and how they work. And then we'll take a brief look at the lead object and how to set that up. And if we need to get more involved in that too with the Q&A, we can certainly do so. All right, so I'm going to jump back into my prospecting workspace here. Go back into our leads tab. I'm going to open up one of these leads here again. I just want to kind of talk about some of the new lead stage. So a lot of times now we have the prospecting workspace, we sort of changed how the lead flow really works in HubSpot. It's recommended now that, so it's good to know that every lead has to have a contact or a company assigned to it. So leads are their own independent object, but it's important that they're always associated with a company or contact. They can't be their own sort of entity, if that makes sense. So this is associated to a contact already. You're using those life cycle stages to then determine when the leads are being created. So I'll show you momentarily in the settings there, but there's a way that you can actually set up in your life cycle stage then and then indicates that the lead gets pulled in at that moment. And then when it does, then you have these lead stages to determine kind of the pipeline of that lead. So they'll all start as new. And then what's great about a lot of these is they create a lot of automations for us as we're getting going. So the first of which is that the moment that I email this contact or I call and then I log that email or call, this will automatically move to attempting for me. So it knows then where that kind of lead sits. And then similarly, when that lead gets back to me, they reply to that email, they'll be marked as connected. And then here's what's cool. So if I open this now to qualified, it automatically opens up the deal pane for me. So I can create a deal right away after we know that we qualified this lead and that there's something here that we can use. And then similar to that, disqualification. I've actually added here a chance to have a disqualification reason. So I can say, oh, you know what, maybe this was bad timing and we want to actually loop back and get back to this lead a different time. And then that maybe allows me to report on where we're seeing leads that are disqualified and why. Then if I take this even further, and I go ahead and take a look at some of those lead objects, here's where a lot of that can happen. So here's where I can determine what these stages are for me and for the business that we have. So HubSpot has these ones by default, but change them. Make them that make sense to you. As you notice, we talked about some of those conditional properties here. Maybe I don't want a deal to be turned on when it's qualified, and I can just toggle that off. Maybe in addition to a disqualification reason, maybe I also want to have some note here. Maybe there's something that has to be extended to say about it, but I don't necessarily have to make that required. So there's just an opportunity for that rep to say, yes, this person was disqualified. It was bad timing. Maybe there's a note that says like, but timing might be good in 1 month from now. And that just gives a little bit more information. There's also automation for a lot of the lead too. So if you're familiar with workflows, you can create, specific workflows for all these leads. But here's a really cool piece of it. So creating a lead for follow-up. So I showed that if there was an opportunity for disqualifying a lead, maybe I can say that I want to reattempt that lead based on qualifications. So I can actually have a new lead set up for follow-up after the fact, even if they're disqualified. All right, let's switch back over. All right, let's talk about some deal management. Oops, sorry, 1 second. Perfect. All right, so deal cycles, lots of slowing down things there. We want to make sure that we can optimize how we're thinking about deals and how we move through that board. And then focusing on kind of the prioritization and productivity of it all. So how can we figure those things out? So one is just first customizing your deal board and knowing how that all looks and feels. Understanding kind of, again, those deal tools and the new deal score, which I think is a really cool insight that we have. And then there's the deal object. So how do we kind of play around with that and make sure that we're setting up our deal board again in a way that makes sense for our business? And if there's multiple pipeline we have to set up to do that, we certainly can. All right, let's take a look at some of those. And before I do, any questions in the chat that I want to make sure that I can, because I can't see it at the moment, but if there's anything that I can address in the moment, I'll give that opportunity. Okay, awesome. All right, let's take a look at some of those deals. So that's CRM and deals. Here is our deal board. Not a lot going on in my portal specifically, but this might be very full for you or not. Either way, lots of, this is how the deal board will look. If you don't prefer it as a board and you prefer it as a list format, you can change that too. I also encourage everyone to take a look at even just like editing their cards or how the board is that they want to have fit out. Even something like inactive cards is a really good thing to have being considered in terms of just how long has it been since cards have been activated in terms of engagement, and then knowing kind of at a glance where those might kind of fall off. So I can change this from 1 day. I don't think all these have been updated, but normally we'd see these switch around as it were. And then all these other kind of the insights that you can see in terms of just a lot of the AI data that's being captured in terms of what they think about your pipeline. And then let's take a look at this new deal score, which I think I need to be in a different portal. Let's go back. It's tough having so many portals sometimes. Okay, there we go. This looks like a much better deal board compared to my other one, right? All right, so let's take a look. So here I want to show you this new deal score. So deal score is a relatively new tool that's been entered in that really is a way of just giving you a quick assessment about how does it think that your deal is performing? Do they think it's going to close? And again, AI kind of taking a lot of historical data here to understand, when was the deal created? When was the last activity? Historically, how quickly are these deals moving forward? Where's the deal sit in relation to its stage? Do you have the right contacts involved? So it's taking all of that data and kind of determining a score for you. Really cool to see as an oversight, excuse me, not an oversight, as an insight to be able to determine kind of how do we want to prioritize your deals. Then let's take a look at some of those customizations. So much like we have with kind of lead stages, we can do the same thing with deals. So I can customize all of those that you saw in those stages. We can determine their deal probabilities. I can delete stages, I can add stages, and I can also do those conditional things too. So thinking about, again, like what are those important qualifications that you want to have when it comes to those setting those stages. And then here's a really important element too. A lot of times you'll see movement going in the wrong direction, or maybe you'll have reps that will open a deal too soon, perhaps. Here's a way that you can actually restrict where those deals are being set up. So for example, maybe you have a sales rep that's just automatically saying, yep, we did a presentation, so I'm just marking it at presentation scheduled. We didn't have to do any of these other things beforehand, but you need to say, no, it's important that we start at appointment scheduled, and that's where every stage will then begin when you're opening a new deal. Similarly, restrict people from skipping stages is really important. Moving backwards, maybe you don't want to stay on the more backwards at all. And then here's a new tool too. This is, I think, enterprise specific, but asking for approvals, which is a really cool tool. So maybe you have someone in finance that they have to go through approving it before they can actually close the deal. Really cool way to actually set that up. Again, lots of automation tools, again, within the workflows. But I wanted to call your attention specifically to deal tags. I'm actually set these up here. So I'm going to create this greater than 5,000 tag here with you together. So deal tags, I'm going to show you actually exactly what they look like. You might have saw them when I was on the deal page here. But deal tags are, again, like kind of at a glance, giving you automated understanding about where things are fitting. So here I have these tags that say good fit or risky. But what I was going to do, and we can show together, is how to create one of those tags. And in this case, I'm going to do it with relation to maybe want to have an understanding about which are higher value tags. So I'm going to create one from scratch. And we're going to call it, not further, greater than $5,000. We'll give it a nice green tag. I'm going to add a filter here, check out our deal properties. This is related to the amount. It's going to be greater than that number. There you have it. Now, I know it doesn't update quite right away, but I know that it will by the time we get into our Q&A. We'll look at the deal board then. But when I go back to my deal board then, we should start seeing some tags on things that are then greater than $5,000. I think I see something in the chat about the deal score. Yes, deal score is pro and enterprise specific tool. Good question.
Nick, did you see the question about what did you click on to get the deal boards and then deal board settings?
I did not know. Okay, sorry. Yes, let's go back. So here's our deal board to get there. It's purely just CRM and then to deals. And then if I click on the settings, it will traditionally bring me right to those deal settings. But if it doesn't, it's over here under the data management and then deals. And that will take you based on its object. See, objects, deals. And here we are. And this is all the deal customization we can do. Again, we can dig into more of this at the Q&A. I know there's a lot here. I wanted to make sure that I was calling out some of those important ones like pipelines and being able to make those adjustments, because I can't stress it enough. Like, don't feel like you have to use these default ones. Make it feel like it fits your business needs and kind of map out your own sales process within it.
Nick, is this settings gear when you click that? Does it know what page you are clicking from? Is that why it will take you to the?
Yeah, traditionally it does. So the same thing would happen with leads too. So if I'm in that kind of leads object as I were before, same thing. It'll take me right to this lead settings too.
I never noticed that.
Yeah.
There.
That's pretty spiffy.
All right, let's move right along here. Let's talk about some sales reporting and analytics. Oops, there we go. So sales and reporting. I think sales reporting I always found to be really difficult in pretty much any CRM I used to be working out of. It was really hard to kind of identify what reports I needed, and just kind of like looking at them was just a lot of kind of gobbledygook in my own opinion. What I love about kind of HubSpot sales analytics tools is it's really easy to find, and they kind of give you these collections of reports that are all already taking historical data that you have and just setting them up for you. And if there's things that we need to go to like creating our own reports, we can do that too. So I'm going to show you a couple different of those things. All right, first let's take a look at our reporting and analytics. So now under reporting, there is this button now for sales analytics. And here's all of my sales reports. There's actually these 3 buckets. So we have coaching reps and teams, forecast and pipeline, and sales outcomes. We're on the coaching reps and teams right now. This is completed activity. So this is looking at everyone that's on my team and determining all the tasks that have been completed within that section. But here's some cool things too, like the lead funnel. So just how are leads progressing? How many leads do we have? How long does it take before they actually we get in touch with them? And I can see that journey too. So do I know that leads are maybe even skipping steps accidentally, or taking a little bit long to load here. There we go. Nice little Sankey chart showing me where things are kind of being skipped, which ones are qualified, marketing qualified leads, where do they sit in those life cycle stages. And we do this for deals too. So if I go to the forecast and pipeline one, same thing. So just as I'm used to looking at a lead funnel, I can look at the same thing within a deal funnel and see where things are kind of skipping stages, or having some trouble or getting stuck. Sales outcomes, I also really like this deal velocity one, and for a couple reasons. One, because I can almost sometimes forget everything that it stands for, and I love to talk about how this little about this report button is very available to everybody, because here's our sales velocity report. The sales velocity report, it tells you how many number of days it takes to close deals. So that's kind of what it's analyzing here. So really cool reporting to kind of give me a sense about like how fast are we closing deals, and like what is the average time that it takes for those to close. Gives you a better sense about maybe, again, where are things getting stuck, where are things sitting in a longer stage than others, and how do we kind of shorten and narrow that gap. There's also, as you might have saw before, under some of the deal insights there. So when I went to deals here, I had the new show insights page, little section here. They do the same thing very similarly under forecasting. So if I go under reporting and look at forecasting, now there's a nice little analyze tool. And again, AI forecasting. So gut check, just how's your forecasting looking? AI can kind of analyze that with you and say like, actually, we think we should be here, just based on kind of your own historical data with it. So it will just kind of manually check that for you. This will update every 7 days. But again, takes a look at all your historical data and kind of checks that accuracy and reliability that you may have on your own forecasting. The last thing I want to show you here is really just something that I think is super important, just around kind of the feedback and being able to analyze a lot of these things together. So I like to look at kind of the conversation intelligence that we have by taking a look at calls. So many of you might know all of the HubSpot calls that you have can be recorded. Here's somewhere you can look to analyze those calls. So here's a call that we had set up before. Again, really cool aspect of just being able to analyze, listen to the entirety of that call, and then having a call summary be generated automatically for us. So there's this button now to generate a call summary, again, all AI based, and just gives me a really brief, rough like sample about what happened in this conversation. I can also see some tracked terms. So maybe I want to understand which terms I'm looking for. Here I wanted to add like a competitive, like maybe they're talking about Salesforce. Does that come up at all in this conversation? I can also see some stats. Do I know how long Alex was speaking to Nick and how, what that interactivity was like? And then maybe my favorite part, the whole transcript. And I can search this transcript too, specifically. So if I want to search for keywords, like how often do they talk about Sales Hub? Oh, not a whole lot, but here's some sales engineer conversations. That's good to see. But again, whole conversation. What I like about this a lot too, related to that feedback element of it, is that I can add comments based on sections of the call. So I can leave comments here and it will kind of timestamp things for me, or I can share this out. So maybe there's really specific feedback that I have on a section of this call. I want to reach out and let Yvonne know, hey, like, I don't know if you thought about this a little bit differently. We didn't get through all of BANT. Like, we missed the authority part of it. We got budget and needs and timeline, but we're missing the authority person. Let's get that in here. Or I've also seen this used as a celebratory opportunity. Maybe you want to let Yvonne and Sarah and Radulia know that, hey, Mary sounded great here. You should listen to this part. And then you can actually send that out that way as well and give an opportunity to kind of recognize one of your sales reps. Or furthermore, I can create playlists out of this too. So I can create call playlists, and then these can be all viewed and analyzed and set up as a training call by, again, kind of going into our library and looking at our coaching playlists. And now here's call playlists. So maybe this is how I set up some onboarding with a lot of my team and say, like, these are our own reps talking to customers. Here's exactly what it could really sound like. And here's how you can best be prepared by listening to our own kind of call playlist that we've generated. All right. I'm ready to move to our Q&A. All right. That was everything that I had to kind of showcase to you all. But again, of course, there's a lot going on in HubSpot, and I'm happy to do some deeper dives too. I will share some additional resources at the end of this too, just kind of going through some different places where you can make sure Mary will share those links to additional resources, knowledge-based articles, Academy, things like that that can support you too. But I will kick it off with our Q&A. What would y'all like to chat about?
There's nothing in the chat right now, Nick, but while people are thinking, and feel free if you want to come off mute and or on the video to ask Nick a question instead of
Please.
typing it in the chat, you can certainly do that too. But while people are thinking of that, two questions that popped up when you were showing the call analysis for me were, number one, is the summary that it gives also like timestamped? So like if it summarizes a bullet point and you want to jump in and just re-listen to that piece of the conversation, can it do that?
It's summarizing the whole call. So it's not summarizing a specific section of the call. So it's really just giving a summary of the entire call. So I think if you were to change where the timestamp was and still say regenerate call summary, it would still be in relation to the entire call specifically.
Okay, so like it won't. We have some clients who I think use Avoma and it integrates with HubSpot and it generates something similar. But one of the things that's useful from it is like it'll say, you know, this was talked about and this was talked about and this was talked about, and you can click on that and just re-listen to that portion of the call. Like it'll take you right to that part in the recording.
Gotcha. I would say you could do that from the transcript. So here, I'll just swipe over really quickly again. Let me go back to those calls. And so in that example, I would say what you could do is if I look at the transcript and I click on any one of these sections, it will jump to that portion in the call. As you saw, the time head just leapt right over. Oh, click again. There it goes again. And then, yeah, I would listen to that exact.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good weekend, golf.
Portion of that call right there. So yeah, it's not generating a summary for that part of the call, but I can search it in the transcript and it will jump it right there in the playhead.
Okay. And then my other thing that I thought of, which is more of just an idea that I think people could use that tool for, the sharing piece that you showed of like sharing a snippet from it. I think in addition to like the sales coaching example that you shared, I think people could use that for like, if there's product feedback too. I could see, you could share that with like your customer service team to be like, here's a feature that this customer really appreciates and would like to see more of, like I can just see a ton of use cases for like voice of the customer as well with those call transcripts.
Definitely. And then for better, and like use those track terms too, like make sure you're entering in like terms that you want to be tracking so that you can just, again, know right away, like what are they following up on? Definitely. I love that idea.
Are those tracked terms reportable over all calls, or is that just something that you're getting information on that specific call?
I think it's that specific call, but that's a really good question. I'll have to follow up with you on that. Make a note.
Thanks. Frank asked if there is a setting to turn on the deal score feature.
Yeah. So right now it's I think it's in a public beta. Correct me if I'm correct. So you can actually, if you take a look, the easiest place to do that I would recommend is if you go into your kind of the menu portal here and take a look at product updates. So this is not only a really good thing to know about, but here's everything that's kind of going on in HubSpot world in terms of all the product updates that will happen. Some of you might know my good friend Kyle Jepson. He actually reviews these with another friend of mine, Max Cohen, every Monday. So actually every Monday they go over these in the morning and they call it their Monday morning briefing, and they'll go through the weeks that have gone by in terms of just here are all the updates that are happening, and they'll talk about their relevancy. But if you're looking specifically here, yes, here's the deal score specific update, and you can join that beta right from here.
That's great. All right, are there other questions out there? Is anybody using the prospecting tool at all? Something that's been a big win for you, or anything you want to share with the group?
I see a lot of potential in the leads object for like one of the, I think in the past, one of the historical limitations of HubSpot was that it wasn't the easiest to like cross-sell, upsell existing customers. And the leads object absolutely, I think, solves for that, which is great.
Definitely. And you can have multiples of that same lead, and they can go through that journey multiple times, just like a deal would too. So that you can have that associated on the contact, and it can be set up that way if that's easier from a business perspective for you too. Yeah, definitely. Lots to do. That there's the lead object is growing exponentially. I feel like even just 8-9 months ago, it didn't have the settings and capacity that it does now. So it's really growing in a really cool way. I'm really happy to see how it's headed.
Yeah, I like the automation that you showed too, Nick, about how the stages, talk to the activities. Like if you log an email or log a call, it updates the stage as connected or attempted. Because that's a real big pain point is for salespeople I know with CRMs is just like data entry, right? So the more that it does it for you, the better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I can't stress, like I maybe said it, I'll say it a million times if I have to, like go back to basics for yourself. Like really think about kind of that end-to-end sales process. If you've never mapped that out, like I really strongly encourage you to do so. Like think about the actions that you take as a business, what actions the customer takes, and then set up your stages based on that really. And think about how to be reactive and when those stages are complete and what gets you to that kind of exit criteria for the next stage. That will help, I think, tremendously in terms of determining then what can you automate. So are there elements of the lead stage process or the deal stage process that you can automate? A really common one that I love from like an onboarding perspective is that when a deal closes, set up a workflow that just sets a trigger that lets someone on the onboarding team know that that deal is closed, and that they get like some sort of internal notification that gets sent out, and maybe an email that goes out to the customer that says like, congratulations, like you're ready for onboarding. And like all of that can be done in a workflow as a totally automated thing. And then that alleviates a lot of that kind of like paperwork and back end administrative stuff that you're talking about. What else?
Nick, is there anything for you from your perspective that's like one of the things you're excited about with HubSpot's new releases and things that are changing?
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
is there
I
any
think I'm
reviews you
excited.
can give us?
Yeah, right. I'm excited to see there'll be a lot of really cool things coming inbound time. I think that the prospecting workspace is going to get a little bit of a lift there as well. I know there's some kind of private betas going on right now for the workspace, and they're trying to like really beef it up in a really cool way. I've seen some things, can't quite talk about them yet, but they will be here soon, which is really exciting. We'll start to see a lot of those kind of, you'll see, I think, a lot of these workspaces kind of evolve within all the different hubs. So they're actually in the process right now of having a customer success workspace that looks very similar. Again, just like thinking about the pipeline of it all and how are we getting through kind of each stage in these businesses. I think you'll start to see a lot of that within HubSpot, just so we can really visualize those elements as they're moving and then thinking about where do those automations make the most sense. So yeah, I love the new lead object stuff, the deal object and pipeline customizations you can do, and just play around with it. Like really see what kind of triggers you can create. And I think about things through the lenses of your sales reps. Like how do you want to build the right behaviors for them? We didn't talk about it here today, but playbooks is a really good use case for something like that if you're not using playbooks, if you have Pro or Enterprise. Creating a discovery call playbook. So what kind of questions are you thinking about in relation to what you need from a discovery perspective or for lead qualification? And are those in a call script for your reps to just be able to read off of and kind of click buttons and interact in a way that, again, makes their job really easy, but builds the behaviors of them knowing, oh, I want to make sure that I'm asking about BANT or MEDPIC or all those sorts of different acronyms that we use, right?
Nick, you just got a softball question lobbed your way.
Oh, good. Let's see. Let me try on the chat. How does the user experience and user interface of HubSpot compare to other leading CRM solutions on the market? Is it intuitive and easy to use? Oh, cool. Yeah, that is a softball. Come on. I'm just kidding.
Put it out of the
I
park.
mean, huge advocate for HubSpot. I have worked in Salesforce. I've worked in Sugar. I've also worked in a lot of just kind of CRMs that were built kind of on their own independently. What I think is really spectacular about HubSpot is I think kind of where it fits. I think that it's not meant to be like this huge, crazy Salesforce sort of lofty thing where it feels like it's complicated to kind of operate. I think that HubSpot makes it incredibly, incredibly easy to use and feels like something that you can build and have a baseline for and be foundationally happy with, but then also have a lot to scale with. So again, like some of those features that we talked about today, like the prospecting workspace, that's a pro feature and one that's designed for your reps to have like a centralized location. Does it mean it's the only way to prospect? Absolutely not. You can still use that contacts page and you can be prospecting that way and still setting up those lead stages similarly. It's just ways of thinking about it as you're scaling up, which I think is really awesome, instead of feeling like that you don't know which levers to pull in some of kind of like something like Salesforce or something that doesn't have a lot of those customization options like Sugar, for example.
And in case anybody thinks you're just biased, Nick, I would second that. I've worked in some various other CRMs, and we've worked with a number of clients here at Wider Group too, and we share that sentiment.
I'll also say, if anything, HubSpot took me the least amount of time to learn compared to any other ones that I've worked with.
Yeah, and as a marketer too, it's very marketer friendly. Like you still need, dev help getting some templates and things set up typically, but it's very easy for marketers and salespeople to use, in my opinion.
Okay.
There's one more question in the chat that popped in as well regarding security and compliance for HubSpot.
Oh boy, I'm not the person to talk about this other than to say that it is secure. I think that it keeps all of those things in-house and that all the reporting and data that's happening stays within your own portal specifically. I know they're also doing a lot now with like HIPAA and things like that. So for those in the kind of healthcare business and things like that too, there's a lot of things that can help you kind of protect and make sure that you're HIPAA compliant. So lots of like that security and protection and privacy is incredibly important to HubSpot and make sure that everything kind of stays within that portal. There's probably, and I will look for it so I can follow up, but there's certainly some kind of white pages and things like that about HubSpot security and compliance and how all that works too.
All right, Shannon also has a question for you on the difference between contact and leads.
Yeah, okay, great. So I'll read this again. So contacts are kind of the first line of defense, and then all leads are associated with a contact. So no leads act independently without being associated to a contact or a company. And how do I get Noda as a lead into the prospecting board? Yes. Okay, well, automatically go over, and then let's get to that calendar thing too. Okay, yeah, so let's take a look. Go back. Actually, I think I can do it from here. Nope. Let's see. This is an important one when it comes to associating those leads and contacts. I recommend turning this feature on. So this little here syncs the lead owner with the contact or company owner. So as you're associating new leads to those contacts and companies, which I'll show you how to do that again in just a moment, this will sync it automatically. So instead of that person who created the lead being the lead owner, this will make sure that the lead owner is consistent with that contact or company owner, so that they are the one that's assigned that lead. To create the lead though, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Let's go over to our contacts here. We'll just click on any one of these here. And the lead can be created right over here. So I can add this. I have to do the sync lead owner. Yeah. So I have to add, see here, it actually knows that I have the lead owner contact synced specifically. Here, I want to turn that off so I can actually make this work the way I want it to. Leads. For our training purposes. Let's go back over. So yeah, here's our associations on the right sidebar here. And here's my opportunity to kind of add a lead for this specific contact. Again, you can also use automation for this based on the life cycle stage. So you can actually set this up where that leads would be created based on a stage. So if you decide that you want to have the lead be generated on that stage, then the lead can then automatically be created once it hits that stage. That's a good way to do it too. That answer your question, Shannon?
Shannon also asked the calendar and scheduling if that only connects with Outlook. So can you talk about how this integrates with other systems?
Google Calendar and Outlook are the two predominantly. I don't think there's connection with others right now. I think you can maybe do some like different APIs and things like that to have other ones, but I'd say that like standard set are Chrome and like Google Calendar and Outlook.
And then Shannon also asked, when you created a lead, does it automatically go to attempting and connected?
No, it stays as new. So if I go back, take a look. It's gonna be in the wrong portal though again. Let me switch over. So let me go back into, I'll show you that again. So when a lead is created, they're all set up as new unless I specify differently. And then that lead stage again, that will only happen. So it says here, lead will move to attempting when you log a call or send an email. So that happens automatically after I complete that action. So I would email, not connected here, send the email, and it would move it to attempted for me.
Nick, I assume that you can set up, like if you have a service level agreement between sales and marketing and you've outlined definitions for like when a contact becomes a lead or when you open a lead and who's creating leads and how they're getting created, all of that that you've documented. And then you can identify what within there you can automate versus is manual, because I can see like there's instances where you'd want automation for sure. Like somebody comes through your website, fills out a form, like sort of the traditional inbound approach. And then, you at certain threshold, you kick them over to the leads area to be worked. And then there also could be like a sales rep who comes back from a trade show with some business cards and they want to put those into their lead queue to work. And so they could just manually create a new lead object in their queue, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, use that form, a way of doing it that way too, so that when people are submitting a form, and that doesn't even have to be based on just a conference, that was an example too. So this could be right off your website. You could have a form set up there, and you could have, like, if you have that enterprise feature that we showed off, like conditionally route people that way, or set them up to a specific page as they go. But I think you called out something really important, Kelly, which is that marketing and sales and post sales should have conversations together, like pretty actively. An old, a coworker, maybe familiar with Dan Tyre, he called it smarketing. Like, make sure these people are like talking to each other all the time. I can't tell you how much more successful sales was, and marketing for that matter, when those people are talking together. Because identifying and aligning in terms of like what those goals are and how to achieve them together will make a huge, huge difference. So yeah, think about all of those stages. Think about what makes sense. I'm personally, this might be a hot take. I'm not a fan of having marketing qualified or sales qualified leads. I think a lead is qualified because realistically, if a BDR to me is qualifying, we've told them what they need to do their job. Maybe again, they're using a playbook and they have all the things in front of them. They qualified it. I trust then that salesperson doesn't need to qualify it again. They should just get right into discovery because we trust that that BDR did that qualification and then we're not duplicating efforts in that way. So think about those sorts of things. What's important to you?
And there's one more question that came in from Corey in the chat about integrations with ERPs, which is something, we work with a lot of industrials, and that's a great question for.
I'll have to get back to you. I'm not an ERP expert as much. So I will have to follow up with you, Corey, if that's okay.
Yeah, also, I don't know if Rick from our team is on, not to throw him under the bus, but Rick, I see you there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
On the ERP side?
Yeah, on that ERP question that Corey has in the chat. I know you have a lot of experience with integrations, and have dealt with ERPs in your lifetime as well.
Yeah, well, and most ERPs aren't really CRMs. I mean, they have a CRM component and they refer to themselves as a CRM because it's basically a database. So they say, well, we have a database, so it's a CRM. But I usually find that ERPs are best at what they do, which is generally focused on the operations and the accounting, and how best at what it does, which is generate all the marketing automation and the sales. And connecting them usually is not a problem. In a lot of cases, there's a lot of native connections between ERPs, and when there's not, custom APIs can be created. So it really comes
I know
down
those
to
integrations
the
can
sales
happen.
process.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off, Rick.
No, I'm sorry, Nick.
I was just going to say, I was agreeing with you that like all those APIs certainly exist. I'm just not an expert with them. So my understanding is that can be done. I'm just not the person to ask about how to do the integration part of it.
Yeah.
I think, Rick, the spirit of Corey's question goes to what you were saying about how ERPs claim to be CRMs and they're not. And it sounds like Corey's acknowledging that. He's like, yeah, it's great. I'd love them to talk to each other though. And the short answer is yes, Corey, it is possible.
I'm Corey number 2, just chatted, but we're literally building an API right now from HubSpot to Epicor ERP. And it absolutely can be done. There's some like tools already out there. You can buy like pre-built APIs, but they typically will charge you like per data transmitted. And so we're just working with like a local consultant who's building that connection between us, but it wasn't a crazy endeavor. We're right in the middle of it right now, and you can get it as technical as you want for how much, depending on how much your company wants to spend. But it's been pretty agile, and we haven't had any serious roadblocks or anything. So it should be done soon.
Thanks for that, Corey. That's great to know. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure I did provide some of those resources for you all too. And if there are more questions, like I said, feel free to email me and I can try to follow up and find the right answers for you too. I'm okay with that. Connect on LinkedIn. But a few different things here just to be aware of. So the lead management and prospecting software there, that first link is just kind of an overview again of a lot about Sales Hub, specifically related to the prospecting software in that workspace. Then the next thing there is the recent Sales Hub software certification. So this actually got updated back in April that I had published, and it's going through a lot of these new features that we talked about today and more. It's about a 2-hour certification course with an exam at the end, but you can be certified then thereafter. And then I applied some few different knowledge-based articles here for you as well, just to take a peek at if you had some additional questions. Mary, would you mind sharing those either post webinar or we can share them in the chat, whatever is easier is great.
Yeah, I will have those in the follow-up email that will also include the video and the slide deck. And I will give you Nick's LinkedIn connection so that you can ask him some more questions.
Awesome.
You okay with that, Nick?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. Well,
Thanks so
thank
much,
you
everyone.
all.
I had a great time. It was great to meet many of you and really good questions. And yeah, I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending, and just shoot us more questions or other topics you want us to cover in the next Appleton Hug. Have a great day. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks,
Yep.
Nick.
lot of people.